wish I would have known these things back when I started riding, or at least they would have been good to know. The first one, and I'm sure you'll work this out, is there's way more different types of motorbikes than there seems to be as cars. It's almost like they have more free range rules. And what I mean by this is you have your different cars. They could be hatchback, sedan, SUV, truck. They fit and look like a few different categories, like very easily slot into a few categories. Some might have a sloped back, some might have more of a boot, for example, to change things. And they've got 8 cylinders or whatever. But when it comes to motorbikes, things get a little bit crazy. So you've got like your super sports, but then you get motorbikes that sit up a bit more and they take the fairings off and they're called nakeds. And then you got dirt bikes, but then you got dirt bikes that can have lights that can go on the road. They're called dual sports. But then you've got adventure bikes, which are like advanced dual sports and get super heavy. But now you've got a kind of a trend going for light adventure bikes, which kind of try and be more like dual sport enduro bikes, but they're not quite race enduro bikes. And you get the point. There is more free range rules when it comes to these manufacturers and what they want to come out with, which is awesome because things are always fresh. It's only the last decade that nakeds really started taking off. And then you've got Kawasaki in the last decade also launching the H2, which is like supercharged motorcycles. So the sky's the limit and you get some really unique bikes, which is awesome. But for the newcomers, well, the whole thing is a bit hard to consume at first because you see like a Kawasaki Z900 bike and you ask them what it is, and if you can't see, it might be like a blackened out logos or whatever, and you're not familiar with Kawasaki's or Hondas or anything, and someone will tell you it's a Z900, but it looks really familiar to like another bike. And anyway, you get the idea. Models can get crazy, but rest assured there is a system to the madness. I can't think of the word, but they do fit into categories. Sometimes the lines get a little bit blurred, but they can be nakeds, super sport, enduro. We went through a few of them, but just know there's many to choose from. Second one is very much directed to dirt bike riding, and I hope that everyone that experiences road bike riding does make their way onto a dirt bike at some point because it's just a whole heap of fun. But when you first come across sand is the worst track surface you can have. It seems to be. Anyway, especially where I'm from here in Australia, a bit south where things are dry, we get like super heavy sand, almost like this red. It's like a red sand, like a red loam. It makes the racing pretty hardcore when they really whoop out and everything, and then they get anyway, the tracks get crazy. So if you haven't experienced sand, it's actually really, I would go as far as to say, if you want to be a super all-round great rider and improve, I highly recommend jumping onto different surfaces a lot. So if you've only ever experienced road and asphalt or bitumen, whatever you call it, that's one style of riding, but you understand, like, you've got a lot of grip and the rubber and the bitumen kind of work together. It's almost like you got, you're on, not tracks, but you're like glued to the surface, whereas obviously dirt gets a lot more slippery. The first time you come across sand, and it looks kind of fine, but it just has so much control of your front wheel. So like positioning is super important. You just learn heaps of skills, I think, when it comes to hitting different surfaces like this. But for everyone that hasn't experienced sand and its unniceness, it's not nice, especially if you're like come through after a heap of other motorbikes. The tracks, because no one rides in a bloody straight line, do they? The tracks will really take your wheel where they want to go, like into the channels. So you can like be trying to force this motorbike to go whichever way you think, but the sand's got its whole own mind of where you're going. So you gotta like just be light on the front wheel, attack it. It's almost a skill set in its own. When you first come across sand, that's point 2. Sand is a whole different beast. Okay, next, this is a good trick to have. Luckily, I did know this one. I think I had someone say it to me once before, and it really stuck as a teenager growing up with motorcycles, even before I could get on the road, or maybe when I first started riding on the road with other vehicles. But the trick is that I was lucky enough lucky enough to know, and I hope that every other motorcyclist out there that rides on the roads with all the other vehicles, is that you expect, or the trick is to expect that every car there is out to get you, or they are trying to hit you, or whatever way that you want to say that catchphrase to yourself. But it's such an important trick. Obviously, it's not true. There's no driver that's like, oh, there's a motorbike, 10 points, I'm going to hit him with my bull bar. That's not going to happen. Accidents happen a lot, sure. But one way to avoid all that is to just expect that every car driver is out to get you. Not expect, have like the mindset that every car is trying to hit you. So what that does, it just makes you more aware coming up to like different conditions or circumstances, things in the road that could put you in a where, like, if you weren't considerate of it, of the extra danger associated. What that means, like, okay, we're riding down a road, maybe it's just a standard 2-road lane. You get your right lane and your left lane. Super chill. It's not a busy day. There's nothing bad about the day. You're just riding somewhere to shops or whatever it might be. And you see a car creeping up to a giveaway or a stop sign, perpendicular to your road. So you're heading this way. They're going to join. They're turning left, so it's a super easy turn. They've just left their house. They're also going to the shops. And like, some people are just so blasé and careless. Obviously, they're a stop sign. You've got right away. But if you go into the mindset of every car driver is trying to hit you, you like really watch them and watch their movements, and especially stare at their front wheel to see any movement. That's the first indication that they haven't seen you and they're about to pull out in front of you. It's all fine and dandy whose fault it is. Obviously, it's theirs. It doesn't matter. You've been in a motorcycle crash because they pulled out in front of you. So if you go into the attention of any intersection, roads that join on like this, people just merging and things like that, if every car's out to get you, you'll be less likely to put yourself in situations where they can get you. And the last one I want to go over, and it's kind of like a unfortunate one, which I was really taken back from on why some people act like this, but we all know there is, for lack of better words, shit people in the world. And it's that some vehicle, you'll probably come across them, depending on where you are in the world, have a real issue, depending on the day. Maybe they're having a bad day at work. That's probably actually what's happening. They have an issue with lane filtering. So for anyone that's unaware of the lane filtering, it's driving between the cars at a stoplight most of the time, as they're approaching and slowing down if they've stopped, or maybe if you're pushing it just as they're starting to accelerate. You don't do this like on a main road at the maximum speed limit, just jamming through the middle. That's not what lane filtering is, not in the way I see it anyway. It's just creeping through the middle of the cars, like under 30 kilometers an hour. What's that? 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. So very slow. That's lane filtering. It's filtering your way through the cars, getting to the front. So then motorbikes do accelerate quicker. It's not like you're gunning it, but it's so that you get away from the cars out in front of you. And in my thinking, it's the safest way to go about navigating the roads. So the problems that I've come across only a handful of times when it comes to car drivers that have a problem with lane filtering for some reason, and we'll get to why that is exactly, I believe anyway, is that you'll be creeping through and you've got cars either side, driving through. Let's say there's 5 or 6 cars either side, and you come through. You've passed the first row of cars, second, just a couple rows of cars ahead. One of the drivers has spotted you in the rear vision, sees that you're creeping through the middle of the row, and you'll see them. The first time I saw this, I'm like, what is he? It took me a while to register, like, what is going on? They actually block you, so they'll turn, just move forwards a little bit, move their car into the center of the lane to stop you driving through the middle. It's almost like humorous how much they must hate their life, their job. Like, if they're coming home from a job they hate, to their girlfriend that treats them bad because they're a shit person or whatever. But whatever negativity they have going on in their days, that they see you, they're unhappy that you're making it past them or something. Maybe I think you're getting to, like, you're the one that gets to go ahead, like you've got this red carpet or something. No, it's safer if motorcycles are away from a pack of cars. That's what it is. But anyway, they don't register that, and they block you from lane filtering. So on this last step here is things I wish I knew, is that some car drivers just have a real problem with, I mean, it's not a real problem. They're not going to get out and fight you, but enough to like do something like that that's like really piss weak, childish almost. And yeah, either way, you get past the next set of lights, or up the road. So anyway, expect that now that you've watched this video, and if you see what happens to you, you know what they're doing. It's best just not to worry about it. At the end of the day, they're obviously a bit heated. If you come up and stir them up, say something to their window, or worse yet, there's a real trend of people hitting rear vision mirrors and breaking them to cost them a few $100s, especially if they've got electronic stuff where they open and shut when they turn the cars off. Then you're dealing with someone that's not really logical. They're not there to have a discussion. They might knock you off the bike, all right? So end of the day, it doesn't matter if they're going to block you doing this lane filtering. Just know there's people out there that are a little bit odd, and every now and then they have a problem with a motorbike driving up the center. So that's going to bring us to the end of this video on things I wish I knew, and I wish that all our other riders knew also when they first, or before they started getting into motorcycles. If you want to find out dangerous things that you must know when it comes to riding motorcycles, you can click that video up in the top corner. That one's pretty important. We check that out after you've watched this, because it sounds like you're about to start riding motorcycles.